Welcome. Here is with another episode of Consciousness Rising Zimbabwe and Beyond. Tonight with me we have Brian Pawandiwa. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you.
And Brian at the moment is in England. He was supposed to be here, but with lockdown got on the other side. So he generally works between Zimbabwe and UK. And he's a personal trainer, is a spiritual coach, and he works in the healthcare community in UK. So I couldn't get much more from him because he told me that when you present and introduce someone, then you start to put that person in a box according to what we know it could be. So he would like to be completely out of that as much as he can. And the reason why we invited today Brian is because we are having a bit of issues, let's call it like that, issues. Let me just backtrack here. So we have this group in Zimbabwe. It's a WhatsApp group, and it's for people who are at a point in their life where they're really seeking for more. And by being in the same group, we can share information, we can share videos, we can share everything that can help us to raise above and be aware and conscious and live in a more, in a more conscious life. And so lately in this week, following the trend of all over the world, they're probably following the trend of all the stars and the planets at the moment combination. Like there've been riots in the States and all these Black Lives Matters and all this period where really the Black community is standing its ground in numbers. I mean, a point in history where it really is going in fire. I mean, everything is physically, and there's so many emotions there. And so in our group, there've been a bit of unrest as well, so that many people have posted some very graphic pictures. It started by someone posting some graphic pictures about from colonial time, and then there was a very fiery discussion coming through the feed. And so by talking to Brian, it's nice to hear his point of view on all this and where you think, I mean, from his own experience, from your own experience, where you think we are in Zimbabwe, and let's see where we go from here. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you. It is, like you said, it's a pivotal time in history. We are looking at a situation where everyone is trying to gain some sort of momentum and trying to mark their place in history. The unfortunate thing that we've got now is we are all starting from different timelines. We haven't got one timeline that we are all basing on and saying this is where this started. Because at the moment we've got ideas where we are saying this is me and this is what I am not happy with. Okay, but the issue that we've got now is how can we as a collective, how can we as a nation actually say to ourselves, this is us, because we are not going to be able to change that situation. There are white people, there are black people. We are not going to change that situation, at least not up until everyone actually sits down and says, okay, what is the way forward? Because everything that has happened has definitely happened. Everything that needs rectifying or fixing needs fixing, but that cannot be fixed without that dialogue. That cannot be fixed without that conversation. So it's a case of people putting heads together, sitting down and saying, how do we actually move forward? The most challenging thing that we've got, the most challenging fact that we've got now is we are basing all this on a physical, okay? But when you go to on the spiritual side of it, where do you actually start? How do you actually start to almost dissect everything to say, where do we actually go? How do we actually start? So this is how I've looked at it myself. I look at it as we are all spiritual beings. In what we are having right now is a human experience. So basing everything on that experience itself, everything that we are experiencing now is possibly what we need to experience. And that doesn't excuse anyone from doing anything that might have felt or harmed another. So what we need to do, especially now as a collective, is have a conversation, have a sit down. When you look someone in the eye and you tell them you are sorry, they can understand it. They can actually hear it. When you retaliate and say, well, you've done this to and so, because another wrong does not right another wrong. It doesn't actually change that way. What we need to do really is sit down, have a conversation. How that is going to be done, obviously, it's something that will have to be discussed, especially like you were referring to group itself. It's a starting point. Even if people from the group can actually get themselves together, if people that are willing to actually do that, have a sit down, have a conversation, that's the only way people can actually realize that we are all spiritual beings on these journeys where everyone is actually going to see that there is much more than the body that they see in front of them. There's a deeper meaning to each and every one of our lives. So if we can actually appreciate that and we use that as a starting point, I think we can actually go a long way.
So before, you were talking about being in a new timeline. Just a few days ago, I've heard this interview. I was listening to this interview where Jason Estes was talking about that very recently we all have stepped in a new timeline. And in this new timeline, there is no badge for how many years of spiritual work you have done. Let's say for me, I've started 25 years ago. I won't have any badge. So anyone can come, 20-year-old, 5-year-old, anyone can come and be so advanced, so aware, so awake that can teach to anyone else. And therefore, in this timeline, the rules, the so-called rules, or the way we see things, are completely different. So, and this is also started with the COVID-19 and this lockdown where everything stopped and we had to review totally our life and the way we do things. And believing that everything is going to go back to normal, it's just an illusion. I mean, it's not going to happen. And so humanity, you're talking about seeing each other in the eyes and see the soul of the other person and therefore relate at a completely different level. Yes. What else would you add on that?
For us to get to that place where we can actually raise our consciousness, we need to understand our psyche. We need to understand the self. I think that's a good starting point, because what causes anger, what causes hate, what causes all the emotions that we get, what causes everything that we think we feel, is what's within us, what's actually deep inside, what's buried inside us. So if you can break everything down and start understanding self first, then that is a very good starting point, because if you can get to know yourself, it's easy to then relate to another. So when I'm talking self, I'm no longer just talking of the body itself, but I'm now talking of you actually understanding your consciousness, you understanding your source, which is exactly where you have emanated from. Because when we go back to who we actually are, that's our starting point, that's our center. So when we look at the universe itself, you are the center of the universe, regardless of what everyone else would actually say. But if you are the center of your universe, then no matter how many times you get moved to whichever direction, that doesn't change. You are still the center of your universe. So that's a strong starting position for each and every one of us to actually understand, regardless of your religion, regardless of your upbringing, you are still the center of your universe, and you hold the key and the power to what you actually want to come towards yourself, which is obviously you being a co-creator. So it's a very good place for us to start and actually understand that. It's very, I wouldn't say it's an easy place for everyone to understand, but it's actually easy for everyone to just know that, you know what, if I can get to look myself in the eye, using a mirror, for example, tell yourself that, you know what, I love you. It doesn't matter what name you have. It doesn't matter anything else. But if you can say, I love you, which is the I am, that's exactly where you are. Because if we actually understand I am, even biblically, I am that I am is God. So if you can actually understand that you have the power to actually co-create, just like the I am itself, then that's you. That's a very strong position to be in. So I think that's a very good starting point for all of us. If you can then start feeling that love within yourself, it's actually easy to share love. How can you give something that you've never actually experienced? How can you share something that you don't even know how it feels like? Yes. So it's very, very good if we can learn to love self, and then when we're sharing, we know exactly how beautiful it is to actually share that love. And if we actually sharing that love, we actually know that there's abundance, because we know where the source is, we know where we're getting it from. So it's coming from within. We are not borrowing from somewhere else to then give it out. We've got love within us, so we're just sharing what we know we've got in abundance, because we will never finish it. There is so much love within us. We are oozing love. All we just need to do is share it, and that's a very good starting point.
So, Brian, did you always love yourself, or life make you love yourself?
Well, it's quite interesting, because I've always believed there was much more to me than what I saw in the mirror, or what I was called by whether my friends, my family. I've always believed there was so much more. But just like any other story, it's been a rocky one. I think I actually got to find myself and got to love myself after I'd been kicked around a few times, because life, as it always does, I had a few, I would call them rough years, where I had to pick myself up and then started finding who I actually was. I lost my job. Just to give you sort of a little sort of view into what actually happened. I lost my job in 2012, which I thought was the epitome of my life, which I thought was the one thing that I loved and treasured the most. So when that was sort of taken away from me, it knocked me down, and I wasn't sure what to actually do. And as that dragged my side as well, my life at home, everything just changed. I then became a totally different person. I was almost in a shell. And I think just a year from that, I also lost my sister. And from that time, it was almost like a roller coaster, where when I thought I was picking myself up, something else happened. When I thought I was picking myself up, something else happened. So I then started looking into who I actually was and what was the meaning of everything that was happening around me. Then I realized everything was only happening, yes, but I needed to know that I was still the common denominator. So whatever was actually happening, I wasn't actually changing. I was still there. So I had to be the one to accept that these things are happening, but then they are not changing the inner me. They are only changing my outside world. So I then actually started appreciating that, started knowing a bit more, reading a bit more, following a few people, whether it was on through videos, audiobooks, just making sure that at least I raised my awareness a bit more. There's loads of sources, especially now with this age of the internet. I mean, the COVID, as much as it's been on the negative side, but in all fairness, it has raised a lot of awareness to everyone. And obviously, consciousness-wise, I think it has woken a lot of people up, as much as we might not want to appreciate it and look at it from that view. Obviously, because we're also looking on the physical, where everyone is looking on the financial side, and sometimes looking at the social side, where everyone has been sort of secluded or maybe enclosed indoors. So yeah, it's for mine, it's been a roller coaster, but in all honesty, I actually appreciate everything that happened to me inside, because it made me look at the inside, where I actually find a lot of positives. So that's where I then found myself, and I managed to raise myself up. And since then, I haven't looked back. It's been, one step at a time, but every single time I've always felt like it's been way better. It's not all glorious, because obviously the one thing about life itself is the yin yang. You've got to balance everything. So there are negatives that come, but then at the same time, from those negatives, we then look at the positives, and everything has been great since then. So that's pretty much the story itself on how I came about.
It feels to me that when the first step to love ourselves is about recognizing that we are perfect as we are. I'm not saying that there is no room for improvement in what we, in our patterns, our scheme that we keep repeating. No, I'm not saying that, but for sure that we are perfect as we are. And so we don't need more titles, we don't need more education, we don't need to have more things or more. Because this recognition actually, it needs to really come from inside. I'm enough.
Yes.
So in today's Zimbabwe, how would you see that applying? With your, through your own experience, what have you noticed about that?
I think I've in not so much just as today's Zimbabwe itself is, obviously from a young age growing up, how I looked at everything was, you've got because Zimbabwe is kind of diverse in a ways. You've got your culture, which is obviously the Zimbabwean culture itself as a nation, and then you've got your culture as in like who you actually are. If you are, for example, if you're a Shona, then obviously there's Shona culture, and then within the Shona culture itself, there is then obviously where you actually emanated from, which would be, say, if you're a Shona, for example, you're from the Rosie Empire, or if you're from, Mrewa, you use a Zulu. So all those things will then have an impact on who you actually are, and how you actually see things, and how you are supposed to behave, and how you're supposed to, obviously, are you expected to be, if that makes sense. And then from the other side of it, there's the education system that we obviously went through, which then takes us to a lot of it, obviously, which is the Christianity side of life, where you are a Christian, and then there is an expectation that comes with that side of it as well. So when you then try and balance the two, where I'm Christian and then at the same time I'm Shona, so what do I take first? Do I follow the fact that I've actually got a totem that, sometimes when I'm greeting my parents, I'm meant to be clapping my hands, I'm meant to be saying, calling my dad with his totem and making sure that I'm respecting him in that sort of way that he will actually understand. And when he does the same to me, do I denounce that because I'm now Christian, and when it comes to my Christian values, I'm not supposed to worship anything else other than. So this is where the mix is, where we are now we find ourselves in this position where we almost do not know which way we are supposed to go. That's why a lot of people are said to be not exactly Christian, because on Sunday they are in church, and then on the Friday night, on the Friday night they're probably driving down to the rural areas to actually go maybe have a traditional ceremony. So that there are a lot of people that are caught in between that dilemma, where they are not so sure which way to actually go. All I can say is, while I've done it myself, is I've embraced everything that comes within my path. I've actually embraced it. However, none of those, including Christianity, including all the traditional beliefs that I have, none of those have got any hold on who I actually am at the center of my universe. They are all part of me. I embrace them. I welcome each and every one of them, because those are part of my spiritual. I mean, those are part of my my journey as a human. You know, but as a being, that's very, very different, because I'm being every single second. That's the beauty of being a human being, because nothing that happened yesterday defines what you are right now. Everything that you are right now is defined by you and your thoughts and your consciousness.
Yes, and your attitude towards life. So from what you were saying before, there are two other words that comes out. How can you be independent? I mean,
Yes.
what you say, the non-attachment, but this word independence, I mean, it's quite interesting, because, I mean, it started 40 years ago for contemporary Zimbabwe. And yet people, because of having lost their identity, if you would agree on that, I don't know if you would, they are searching, so that there is a fight. Which system is like belonging to, where do I belong to? And there is a fight, because it's like exclusionary. I mean, it's taken like exclusionary, but actually, like you said, it could be to embrace it. Embrace all the different parts, and they are all okay.
Yes. Yes. When I try and look back, I try by all means not to attach myself too much to the physical, even though, you know, the counter to that, everyone would say to you, but this is the reality, because reality is, as we know it, it's what you actually bring out of who you actually are. That's your reality every single day. So we are like I said earlier, we are co-creators. What I'm thinking today, what I'm actually manifesting today, is what's actually coming my way tomorrow. So my thoughts that I have today and what I'm actually saying, this is what I need. This is my Zimbabwe that I actually need. That's exactly what I'm actually creating. So the situation that we find ourselves in now is we are still chasing ideologies that were put by other people. If we start sitting down and actually saying, this is what we actually want, you know, that's what we will then for tomorrow. That's what our children will have. That's our grandchildren. That's what our grandchildren will have. Because at the moment, what we are basing everything on is other people's ideas, which, you know, we've now seen, and it's been proven that they don't actually work. We can't keep doing the same things and expecting different results. You know, we now need new ideas to actually say, but this is us. This is where we are. We've got our differences, totally understand and totally respect that. But how do we actually come together, put together ideas that will move everyone forward, especially with the fact that we now know that there's, like we just said, consciousness. That's another almost like side of ammunition that we now have. You know, we can't take for granted that we now know that we can actually raise our consciousness as a nation, not just as individuals.
Yeah.
You know, it's good to raise your consciousness as an individual, but then it's even better as a nation, because you then know that collectively we can actually almost attract whatever we actually want, whether we want to attract peace in our nation, whether we want to actually attract some sort of wealth, you know, as a nation. That's actually easier for people to do collectively than obviously for individuals to try and do that on their own. So that's something that I think we all need to sort of embrace and actually just say, right, okay, this is where we are. What are the ideas that we can actually bring forward? It's quite key for us to also to involve the youth of today, because if you actually look at all the people that are in, whether it's consciousness or in cultural, we are almost talking of people that are past a certain age. So it's very, very difficult to actually get all these things moving forward, because it seems it's a generation, we are almost like a generation too late. So by the time we actually say, this is what we're actually doing, we are not exactly involving people that are actually going to be dealing with the things that are going to be coming, obviously, in the next few years. Because each and every one of us are those that are past a certain stage. So what I think we should really be doing is trying to encourage our our children, our grandchildren, introduce them to some of the ways that we actually use. I mean, I can say I know how to manifest, but I need to be teaching my children how to manifest. I need to be teaching my children how to actually pray, how to actually, sometimes how to meditate, how to center themselves. When they think they're angry, why are you angry? What's actually making you scream? What's making you cry? What is upset you? And if we actually know that every time you squeeze an orange, only orange juice can come out of it. So if ever there's anger coming out, it means there's anger inside. It sounds very simple, but that's exactly it, and it is that simple because that's exactly what it is. You can never squeeze an orange and mango juice coming out of it, because what comes out of whatever they eat, whatever you squeeze is what's actually inside it. So that's what we need to do. We just need to make sure that we try and educate the children and youth to make sure that they're the ones that start understanding some of these ways. Even the Bible actually talks of manifestation. So that's how can we get lost? That's why every time someone actually prays for you, as long as you believe that they are praying for you, then everything becomes better. As long as you believe that the doctor is cured you, you actually get cured, which is exactly like the placebo effect that everyone talks about. So that's exactly where we are. We just need to try and raise consciousness, but let's try and reduce the age group where this is all being introduced. That's my take. Especially if it can be put into the educational curriculum, then it probably would be even better.
Or educational curriculum, there would be so much to do for what I'm concerned to change. Yeah. And also because for what I've seen, there is still lots of competition that is taught at school. And we are getting out of that system. It's more about collaboration than competition. So I hope that is going to change, and I'm sure that in many schools it's already changed. So we've spoke about humanity, we spoke about recognizing it ourselves, so that we need less recognition from outside, because we are not who we are because others mirror it to us. We have to recognize ourselves first. And therefore we go back to our identity, and therefore we become independent in our way we think and we operate in the world. And therefore we can lead by example as well, which is something that
yes.
I feel about you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, and you were telling me before that the story that when people come for you for personal training, please share it with us. What happens?
Right. Yes. So I try and dissect every part of. So someone, for example, someone comes to me saying they're coming for personal training. They are not happy with their weight. So what I try and actually understand is where exactly has it actually started, because weight is only a part of who you actually are. There is a bigger part of you that is not happy, that is obviously perceiving yourself as the unhappy you. But happiness is, if we can, so I try by all means to break that down, obviously in the first session itself. So we will do very light work, but whilst we're doing that light work, we're also covering a few things like obviously self-confidence. So you are self, you are who you actually are. If you can find that happiness within, then obviously everything else doesn't actually matter. When you can do a few press-ups, for example, but as long as you do those press-ups without that freedom of wanting to actually do it, expressing your almost like joy of actually doing that thing, I definitely am getting results, then we are not going to get anywhere. Because if you are doing anything that you're doing in life without that belief and the knowing that things are going to be better, then it's never going to be better, which is exactly where we used to go to when you are manifesting, because it's you actually believing that something is going to come your way. It's you actually knowing that this is definitely going to happen, because I am 100% in it. So when you are 100% into anything, anything comes your way, because that's the belief that you've got, and that's the attraction that you actually have, because you're in tandem with everything is aligned to you. So that's what I try and get people to actually understand, that it's all about alignment. If you align yourself with the body that you say you want, we then put in the work. Work is just you helping yourself believe that it's actually possible, because you now believe, because you're saying I'm doing the work. So that's helping you with your belief. So it's got nothing to do with everything else. I mean, I've heard of people and I've known people that don't actually work out, and yet they don't actually gain weight. You know, they still eat a lot of food, they still do. So it's all about what you actually aligned with. You know, some people believe, you know what, I never gain weight. I eat so much, but I never gain weight. That's exactly what it is. Everyone will have anatomies and everything else, but that's not exactly what it's all about. Alignment and what you know is to be right and true to you. You know, so that's what it is. So I try and get people to actually understand who they actually are, fall in love with the person that they are, fall in love with themselves, and then everything, you know, we just work. But then, in all fairness, we only carve out the bad things. The good thing is already there. The amazing body is already there. All we're just doing is removing the excess. So that's all we do. Excess stuff is all we get rid of. Yes.
So is it this one what we need to remove in Zimbabwe at the moment as a country?
Yes, it's only, and if you actually look at it, Zimbabwe used to be the great basket of Africa. Zimbabwe used to be the go-to place from all over the world, and this is not Zimbabwe's position where we are now. Zimbabwe's position, we all know, Zimbabwe's position is right at the center of everything that actually happens. I say that purely because our view of who we are now is not a true reflection of who we are. We all know that. We all know we are powerful beings. We all know we've got so much. We all know we've got so many minerals. We all know it's a beautiful country. We've got so much to offer. But it's the perception purely based on other people's views. It's not our views, because everyone that's in Zimbabwe right now, when they look around, they actually know it's a beautiful country. They actually know everything is well. But because of the negativity and everything that's coming from outside, hence the reason why I was saying, even as a person, when you're looking outward, then you don't see the beauty that's actually inside you. But when you actually look within, then you'll see the beauty within. If we appreciate the beauty that's inside you, it's easy to then work your way out. If you're working your way out, then you actually know the inside is taken care of. So there's nothing that's inside that's going to be eating you, because you know the inside is good. All I'm doing is making sure that I'm working my way outward. And when we do that, you know, I personally believe if we do that as a nation, actually see it the way we are, because we are a beautiful nation. I don't think anyone ever disputes that. We are a beautiful nation, and everything has always been good. The only thing that's coming out now is things that are coming from outside and making us look from the outside. What if we just turned everything and looked from within and actually see that this is what we have? Because we've got everything. We have everything. So we just work from inside, working outwards. There's so much love. I mean, I've seen videos on YouTube of people that have visited Zimbabwe saying they're lovely people, they're beautiful people, they're this, they're... None of it has been negative about Zimbabweans. When you hear negative stories, it's from outside. It's never from within. So that's what we need to work on. Let's build on that beauty that everyone is actually appreciated. We've got lovely tourist destinations. Nothing has ever changed. If you actually go to some of those places, sometimes you don't even believe they're still in Zimbabwe. So I definitely know, and I've got that strong belief that there is a better place, that we just need to find it. It's there. We just need to work from inside.
Find within ourselves. Thank you so much, Brian, for joining us. And again, for everyone, we just started the conversation, so please share the talk if you like. Probably there will be, we had a few itches with the video, but the sound is okay. And then leave comments in the feed, and just talk to your friend, and let's join this consciousness rising movement. Yeah?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you for your wisdom. Bye.
Thank you. Bless you. Thank you.